cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutare Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyaristarine. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we'll begin reading, and if it's all right, we'll just read through this actually together, and we can stop here and there to, share some thoughts and reflections. And Simheshwar Prabhu, as far as I know, we go until 8 o'clock. Is that right, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we're reading today chapter 22, entitled Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll read each paragraph and then stop for some reflection. I'd like to begin just by seeking everyone's blessings, that we can have a meaningful discussion that's pleasing to Lord Chaitanya, pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, pleasing to all of the devotees. Thank you. After the conversion of the Mayavadi sannyasis to the path of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, many scholars and inquisitive people visited the Lord at Benares. Since it was not possible for everyone to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at his residence, people stood in lines to see him as he passed on his way to the temples of Vishwanath and Bindu Madhava. One day, when the Lord visited the temple of Bindu Madhava with his associates, Chandrasekhar, Paramananda, Tapan Mishra, Sanatan Goswami, and others, he sang, Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan. When the Lord sang in this way, chanting and dancing, thousands of people gathered around him, and when the Lord chanted, they roared. The vibration was so tumultuous that Prakashananda Saraswati, who was sitting nearby, immediately joined the crowd with his disciples. As soon as he saw the beautiful body of Lord Chaitanya and saw how he was dancing with his associates, Prakashananda Saraswati joined and began to sing, Hari, Hari. All the inhabitants of Benares were struck with wonder upon seeing the ecstatic dancing of Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya checked his continuous ecstasy and stopped dancing when he saw the Mayavadi sannyasis. As soon as the Lord stopped chanting and dancing, Prakashananda Saraswati fell at his feet. Trying to stop him, Lord Chaitanya said, Oh, you are the spiritual master of the whole world, Jagat Guru, and I am not even equal to your disciples. You should therefore not worship an inferior like me, for actually I am not even equal to the disciple of your disciple. You are exactly like the Supreme Brahman, and if I allow you to fall down at my feet, I will commit a very great offense. Although you have no vision of duality, for the sake of teaching the people in general, you should not do this. So here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exhibiting extreme humility. Really, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, he came in the mood of a devotee. He's Krishna himself, but he came in the mood of a devotee, particularly in the mood of Srimati Radharani. But also in so many of his dealings, he's demonstrating the etiquette and behavior of a devotee. So here he's displaying beautiful humility. Though, of course, reading this, we have the understanding that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. We see in this chapter several examples when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejects praise, rejects worship. So it's quite paradoxical in some sense, because we don't see examples, of course, of Krishna coming in, his original form, Krishna, and Lord Ramachandra. They're not rejecting worship. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a very special form of the Lord who appears in the mood of a devotee because he wants to experience this love that a devotee has for the Lord, particularly that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. So in keeping with this, appearing in the mood of a devotee, he also exhibits so much in terms of his conduct, in terms of his etiquette, in terms of his relations with others. And this is something that we as aspiring devotees, as aspiring practitioners of Krishna consciousness, we can learn also from this behavior. So he's rejecting praise and rejecting worship. But of course, we see later on his dealings with Prakashananda Saraswati are very unique. Prakashananda Saraswati is a Mayavadi sannyasi who, in many cases, is quite offensive toward Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya is, in this sense, welcoming him, embracing him, and being very humble before him. And he's appealing even to his own Mayavad, to the Mayavad philosophy that Prakashananda Saraswati subscribes to, though we will see not for long. But it's very, very interesting to see where he says here, although you have no vision of duality, for the sake of teaching the people in general, you should not do this. So he's understanding that philosophically, Mayavad philosophy would say that there's no difference between myself and others. We're all Brahman. So in this way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is kind of respecting that outlook, but for the purpose of connecting with Prakashananda Saraswati. So Prakashananda Saraswati goes on to say, previously I spoke ill of you many times, Prakashananda Saraswati replied. Now, in order to free myself from the results of my offense, I fall down at your feet. He then quoted a verse from the Vedic literature, which states that even a liberated soul will again become a victim of material contamination if he commits an offense against the Supreme Lord. Prakashananda Saraswati then quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam regarding Nanda Maharaj as being attacked by a serpent who had previously been a worshipable Vidyadhara. When the serpent was touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, he regained his previous body, was freed from the reactions of his sinful activities. So we see many examples like this. One that comes to mind, of course, is the sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, who in the Damodar Lila, Krishna's Damodar Lila, they take the form as trees. They've been cursed to stand as trees because of an offense that they made. But then as time goes on, they stand in Nanda Maharaj's courtyard for a very long time. And then Krishna, when he's tied to the grinding mortar by Mother Yashoda, he starts to crawl away and he pulls the grinding mortar, and that grinding mortar becomes wedged between these two trees. And of course, Krishna, possessor of 6 opulences, including strength in full, just even as a baby, he's crawling, and then those trees are pulled over, uprooted by the grinding mortar being wedged between them, and then appear the original forms of Manigriva and Nalakuvara. So in this way, Prakashananda Saraswati is explaining that if one commits an offense against the Supreme Lord, and also if one commits an offense against a devotee, they can fall down. So he is showing that he has an understanding of this and that he's fearful. So he regained. So he says when he's describing the situation when the serpent was touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, he regained his previous body and was freed from the reactions of sinful activities. So what we'll see here actually in this chapter is a discussion of also the severity of making an offense against a devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada explains many times that this is sometimes referred to as the hati mata offense, the mad elephant offense. So just as a mad elephant can run and demolish everything in a courtyard in minutes, right? There could be a beautiful flower garden, and if you release an angry elephant into that space, everything will be vanquished very quickly. So in the same way, offenses toward Vaishnavas can be likened to this mad elephant, the Hatimata offense, because it only takes one instance of this, you can say, and it has the risk of completely demolishing our spiritual progress. So an offense against Krishna, Krishna can forgive, but an offense against the devotee, that has to be taken up actually with the devotee themselves, and we'll speak more about this. So continuing, when Lord Chaitanya thus heard himself equated with Krishna, he mildly protested. He wanted to warn people in general not to equate the Supreme Lord with any living entity. Although he was the Supreme Lord himself, he protested against this comparison in order to teach us. So again, quite paradoxical that Lord Chaitanya is rejecting this identification with Krishna. But there are reasons for this. As Prabhupada's explaining here, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, fools deride me when I appear in this world, thinking me to be an ordinary man, right? So Lord Chaitanya is pushing away from this conception. He doesn't want anyone to think that Krishna can appear as an ordinary person, because of course, Lord Chaitanya is not an ordinary person. He is Krishna himself, but he's playing a role in the society. He's playing the role of a devotee. He's playing the role in this Leela, as someone who's chanting through the street, preaching about the holy name, sharing the holy name. Later on, he comes to take sannyas. He plays that social role of sannyasi in the society. So he's just showing everyone not to equate the Supreme Lord with any living entity. So to guard against that, he's rejecting being identified with Krishna. We can also say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in some sense, allows the Yogamaya potency to act on him. That in his ecstasy, in his joy of connecting with Krishna in the mood of a devotee, he also sometimes allows himself to forget that he's Krishna himself. So this facilitates the loving exchange between Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. We can think of one beautiful example. We're coming upon Ratha Yatra season very soon. And so Lord Chaitanya dances ecstatically in the Ratha Yatra and has such beautiful, loving exchange with Lord Jagannath on the cart. And in this space, he's very much in the mood of a devotee, very much focusing on what the devotional experience is like in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So this is one of many examples where Lord Chaitanya, he's not focusing upon this understanding that he's Krishna himself. He's allowing himself to be absorbed in the devotional ecstasy. So, continuing, thus he said that it is the greatest offense to equate anyone with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya always maintained that Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is infinite and that the living entities, however great they may be, are but infinitesimal. In this connection, he quoted a verse from the Padma Purana, which is found in the Vaishnav Tantra, Hari Bhakti Vilas. A person who equates the Supreme Lord with even the greatest of demigods, such as Brahma and Shiva, must be considered a number one atheist. So this is a very important philosophical point. It's there also in when we recite the 10 offenses while chanting the holy names of the Lord, to consider the name of the Lord, or to consider the Lord to be equal to or considering the name of the Lord to be equal to the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma. This is a great offense. So we have to understand that we have respect for the demigods. We respect them as great devotees and as great servants of the Supreme Lord. But to equate the Supreme Lord with the demigods, this is considered atheism. This is considered impersonalism. It's considered to be a great offense, because ultimately the Supreme Lord means the Supreme Lord. By definition, you can only have one Supreme Lord. That's the nature of the Supreme Lord. And though he may appear in different forms, different avatars, different incarnations, different expansions, we understand that he can't be lumped in with other great personalities, however great they may be. We need to be able to distinguish which personalities, which incarnations are aligned with Vishnu Tattva, are actually Krishna Tattva, connected to the original energy of the Supreme Lord. And then others, such as Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, they are considered to be servants. They are given a special role by the Lord. But we don't want to equate. So equating other beings with the Supreme Lord is considered to be a great offense. Of course, we have a very practical, beautiful example in Srila Prabhupada. There were certain times where people would approach Srila Prabhupada with a mistaken understanding, and they would try to, push this idea that Srila Prabhupada is Krishna himself, and Srila Prabhupada very strongly rejected that. He chastised anyone who even suggested such a thing, and also he very humbly said, I'm just a servant. I'm the servant. I'm here to serve my Guru Maharaj. So this is the understanding, that we can't be frivolous in trying to claim that different personalities, even great personalities, are the Supreme Lord. So now Prakashananda Saraswati continues. I can understand that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and even though you present yourself as a devotee, you are still worshipable because you are greater than all of us in education and realization. Therefore, by blaspheming you, we have committed the greatest offense. Please excuse us. How a devotee becomes the greatest of all transcendentalists is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Muktanam appi siddhanam narayana parayanaha sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. Translation. There are many liberated souls and perfected souls, but out of all of them, he who is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is best. Such a devotee of the Supreme Lord is always calm and quiet, and his perfection is very rarely seen, even among millions of persons. Prakashananda then quoted another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, in which it is stated that one's duration of life, prosperity, fame, religion, and the benediction of higher authorities are all lost when one offends a devotee. Finally, Prakashananda quoted Srimad Bhagavatam 7:532, which says that although all the misgivings of the conditioned soul disappear at the touch of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot touch his lotus feet unless one receives the benediction of the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord's pure devotee. In other words, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead unless he is favored by another pure devotee of the Lord. So yes, this is a very important principle. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati kutopi. So this is in our morning prayers, samsaradava, the Sri Guru Vastakam. So this is a principle of without the mercy of Krishna, one cannot receive Guru, one cannot connect with a spiritual mentor. But similarly, without the mercy of Guru, without the mercy of a devotee, one cannot receive the mercy of Krishna. So in our spiritual path, we don't expect to approach the Lord directly. Of course, we may offer prayers to the Lord. There are certain experiences that we can have that's more of a direct relating to the Lord, but we understand the philosophy that we don't try to approach Krishna independently of receiving the blessings and guidance and service of his devotees. There are many reasons for this. Reasons are that we need to have a practical understanding of the spiritual teachings. Otherwise, it's very easy to interpret things for ourselves. So it's very good to have this guidance, to be able to bring questions. So we have achar and prachar. So prachar means to speak and share the knowledge about the Supreme Lord. Achar is the example. So in the devotee, we receive both of these. And we hear about the Lord, we inquire about the Lord, and also we see the example of how a great devotee behaves, how they practice, how they deal with others, and how they approach this path of Krishna consciousness. So this is very important, and we don't try to, jump over and directly approach the Lord. So let's see. So this is very important. So like right now, this chapter is speaking about, it will be glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srila Prabhupada explains many times that there's the book Bhagavat and there's the person Bhagavat. So they have the same name, and in many ways they have the same function. That Srimad Bhagavatam, the book, is the compendium of transcendental knowledge about the Supreme Lord. And we can approach these topics through the mercy of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So similarly, the person Bhagavat is someone who has actually realized the conclusions of the book Bhagavat. They've adopted the spiritual knowledge into their heart and they're living it out. So this person Bhagavat and book Bhagavat are both of extreme essential importance to us on the spiritual path. Now I am taking shelter of your lotus feet, Prakashananda Saraswati said, for I want to be elevated to the position of a devotee of the Supreme Lord. So here Prakashananda Saraswati is shifting his own paradigm from being a Mayavadi sannyasi and clearly a great scholar. We see that he's quoting even devotional literatures. He's a great scholar, but he wants to move to the position of a devotee of the Supreme Lord. He's so attracted by Lord Chaitanya, by Lord Chaitanya's way of sharing the holy name, of Lord Chaitanya's mood, of his message, that he wants to adopt the path of bhakti. So we understand also, Srila Prabhupada in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he explains that there are different goals for different types of practitioners on the spiritual path. So those who are jnanis, they're seeking Brahman realization. They're seeking to eventually merge into the Brahman effulgence of the Supreme Lord. The yogis, what they're aspiring for is Paramatma realization. They're seeking to realize the plenary portion of the Supreme Lord, the super soul within everyone's heart. And finally, the devotees, the bhaktas, they're seeking to develop a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, with Bhagavan, the Bhagavan aspect, the personality of Godhead, and to render loving devotional service. So after talking in this way, Prakashananda Saraswati and Lord Chaitanya sat together. Whatever you have said concerning discrepancies in the Mayavad philosophy is also known by us, Prakashananda said. Indeed, we know that all the commentaries on Vedic scriptures by Mayavadi philosophers are erroneous, especially those of Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya's interpretations of the Vedanta Sutra are all figments of his imagination. You have not explained the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra and verses of the Upanishads according to your imagination, but have presented them as they are. Thus, we are all pleased to have heard your explanation. Such explanations of the Vedanta Sutra and Upanishads cannot be given by anyone but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since you have all the potencies of the Supreme Lord, please explain the Vedanta Sutra further so that I may be benefited. So Prakashananda Saraswati is seeking the devotional purport, the devotional explanation, commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Lord Chaitanya protested against being called the Supreme Lord. My dear sir, I am an ordinary living entity. I cannot know the real meaning of the Vedanta Sutra, but Vyasadeva, who is an incarnation of Narayan, knows its real meaning. No ordinary living entity can interpret the Vedanta Sutra according to his mundane conceptions. In order to curb commentaries on the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous persons, the author himself, Vyasadeva, has already commented upon the Vedanta Sutra by writing Srimad Bhagavatam. In other words, the best explanation of a book is written by the author himself. No one can understand the author's mind unless the author himself discloses the meaning of his words. Therefore, the Vedanta Sutra should be understood through Srimad Bhagavatam, the commentary written by the author of the Vedanta Sutra. So Srimad Bhagavatam, in many places, is praised as being really like the concentrated cream of the knowledge of the Vedanta Sutra, that it's the conclusion, it's the essence of the Vedanta Sutra. So we'll read, where is this? We will read one verse here. Of course, we chant this often before Srimad Bhagavatam. But at Srimad Bhagavatam class, we chant this. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. It's a translation of this. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So this is just one verse in glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, the effect that Srimad Bhagavatam can have. And Srila Prabhupada in this purport is explaining that the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat are remedies for all of the material distress within our hearts. So by associating with devotees and by associating with Bhagavat as the book, we receive that relief from our material situation because we're reminded of our actual position. And also, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, his devotees derive great pleasure and happiness by enlivening and sharing with each other about his glories. So it's very natural for us. It's actually very natural for the soul to hear about Krishna. So that's why the 5 processes of bhakti, the 9 processes of bhakti, I'm thinking 5 angas of bhakti, but that's also relevant because the 5 angas of bhakti include studying Bhagavat. But the 9 processes of bhakti, they start with shravanam, with hearing. So this importance of hearing is emphasized. And by hearing, we're inspired toward kirtanam, toward chanting. And by hearing and chanting, we find ourselves remembering the Supreme Lord. So that's Vishnu Smaranam, and so on. So we'll read this next section. Pranava, or Omkar, is the divine substance of all the Vedas. Omkar is further explained in the Gayatri Mantra, exactly as it is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavatam, there are 4 verses written in this connection, and these were explained to Brahma by Lord Krishna himself. In his turn, Brahma explained them to Narada, and Narada explained them to Vyasadeva. In this way, the purport of the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam has come down through disciplic succession. It is not that anyone and everyone can make his own foolish commentary on the Vedanta Sutra and mislead his readers. Anyone who wants to understand the Vedanta Sutra must read Srimad Bhagavatam carefully. Under the instructions of Narada Muni, Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam with the purpose of explaining the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra. In writing Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva collected all the essence of the Upanishads, the purport of which was also explained in the Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is thus the essence of all Vedic knowledge. That which is stated in the Upanishads and restated in the Vedanta Sutra is explained very nicely in Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm going to stop our reading here to leave the second half of the chapter available for the next devotee who's sharing. So we'll stop the direct reading here, but I'll just share a few comments to kind of restate and connect with what we read today. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have a very beautiful description of his beautiful chanting and dancing in the beginning of this chapter, and the way that enchanted and attracted Prakashananda Saraswati, and is leading him to experience a real uprising within his heart of devotional sentiments. And Lord Chaitanya is described as being so attractive that he just attracted anyone and everyone. And he was not at all discriminatory in terms of who he shared Krishna consciousness with, in terms of who he shared the holy names with. So here Lord Chaitanya is taking this incredible humility in approaching Prakashananda Saraswati, that Prakashananda Saraswati is a sannyasi, Mayavadi sannyasi, and Lord Chaitanya is showing him great respect. But at the same time, Lord Chaitanya is prepared to share all of the aspects of Krishna Bhakti with him. And so Prakashananda Saraswati requests Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please share with him, his understanding of the Vedanta Sutra, while sharing an admission that the Mayavad interpretation of the Vedanta Sutra is erroneous. So what's incredible here also is that Prakashananda Saraswati is begging for forgiveness from Lord Chaitanya for his offenses. So emphasizing the importance of keeping up positive dealings with the devotees of the Lord, that we have reverence. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. That the devotees, we offer all respects to them because they're just like desire trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they're full of compassion for the fallen and conditioned souls. So here, Krishna himself is in the mood of a devotee as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we understand that offenses to devotees cannot be forgiven, even by Krishna himself. There's one great story of Maharaj Ambarish, that he had his exchange with Durvasa Muni. And Maharaj Ambarish had been taking on an Ekadasi fast, Nirjal Ekadasi fast. And Durvasa Muni was supposed to join him for a meal. And time was passing. Durvasa Muni was off, I believe, bathing, and he was entering into a trance, and he took a very long time to come back to the meal with Maharaj Ambarish. So Maharaj Ambarish, because of etiquette, because the window of time for breaking the Ekadasi fast was closing, he just took a little bit of water. But somehow Maharaj Durvasa Muni came to know about that, and he became very offended. So what happens then is that Durvasa Muni tries to curse Maharaj Ambarish, who's a great devotee of the Lord, and he tries to curse him, and he creates this, from his anger, this is kind of demonic being comes and starts to threaten Maharaj Ambarish. But Krishna always protects his devotees. So the Lord sends his Sudarshan Chakra, and that Sudarshan Chakra starts chasing Durvasa Muni all over, through all different realms. And the moral of this story, what we can take from this, what happens is Durvasa Muni becomes very fearful. And first he goes to Lord Brahma and he says, my Lord, please help me. I'm being pursued by the Sudarshan Chakra. Please help me. Please save me. Brahma says, I'm sorry, I can't do that. It came from Lord Narayan. Why don't you ask Lord Shiva? So he asked Lord Shiva, same answer. Lord Shiva says, you need to approach Lord Narayan. He's the one who sent out this Sudarshan Chakra. And then finally he gets to Lord Narayan, and Lord Narayan says, well, I'm sorry, you've offended my devotee, you've offended Maharaj Ambarish. The only way we can end this situation is if you seek his forgiveness. So this is the point. And of course, Maharaj Ambarish, being a great Vaishnav, full of compassion, when he's approached by Durvasa Muni, he immediately forgives him. He embraces him and forgives him. And then and only then is the Sudarshan Chakra returned back to the lotus hand of the Lord. So in this sense, we understand that the offenses to devotees are very grave. And the only way that we can rectify or remedy is if we sincerely try to approach that devotee. And we have hope that the devotees in their compassion will be forgiving and merciful. So also Srimad Bhagavatam is glorified here in a beautiful way, and that Lord Chaitanya is preparing to share his understanding of the Bhagavatam. He recommends to Prakashananda Saraswati to read and study Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are a few key points of today's reading, and I'd like to stop here and let's open it up to discussion. Anyone who would like to share reflections, questions, comments, thoughts, anything at all. Just thank you so much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Yes, I see a hand from Amritananda Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavats.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my
Hare Krishna.
blessings. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept
Thank you,
mine.
Prabhu. Very nice class. My question is just trying to understand this point. God, by definition, there's no limitation on God. There's no things that he can't do. Like with us humans, we are limited. So, Prabhu, how do we understand that he doesn't forgive? So it seems that there is something he cannot do. Forgive the person who offends his devotee. So how do we understand this? He's still God, but there is something he won't do.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amritananda Prabhu. This is a very profound question, very deep, and really just a very sincere thing for us to look at, because we don't want to oversimplify in any way. We don't want to kind of become very black and white in our thinking. So thank you for that. Thank you for making sure that we look at it in terms of the subtlety and like the full scope of that concept. So I pray that I can approach this in a way that's satisfying. So what we understand is that, yes, of course, God, by definition, is unlimited. God has unlimited names, unlimited forms. God is expansive in every possible way. His opulences exist in full. And actually, God is infinite, right? The Supreme Lord is infinite, Ananta. So in this way, this is why we have great saints and sages who are still feeling that they are so fallen and they have so far to go. Because although they may be of incredible level of spiritual advancement, the fact remains that God is infinite. So there is an unlimited amount of engagement that we can seek when we're contemplating the glories, names, forms, qualities, pastimes of the Lord. So these great sages and saints, they are acknowledging how limitless the Supreme Lord is in sharing in this humble way that they're so fallen or that they have so far to go. They're acknowledging also that limitless nature of the Supreme Lord. So when we say that Krishna forgives if we offend him, but he does not forgive when we offend his devotee, I should qualify that by saying that he may forgive. He may recognize our error and that we regret it and that we have repentance. There's anutapa. We may have like a very feverish feeling in our heart that we've offended the devotee. And that is valuable. That's of significance to the Supreme Lord. Any sincere movement we're making toward trying to honor the devotees and trying to honor the Lord and moving forward, in terms of our sensitivity, that will be very much appreciated by the Lord. So maybe a better way to frame it, rather than the Lord doesn't forgive, sometimes it's that the Lord can't forgive, like in the sense of what we spoke about just now with Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni, that example. So the Lord may be forgiving, but the real substance of forgiveness lies with the devotee. When the offense is made toward the devotee, the Lord's forgiveness is not necessarily the antidote to the issue. And in a way, there's something very powerful and very personal about this, that actually when we offend a devotee, we can't, as we use in modern parlance, there's a lot of discussion about this, spiritual bypassing. We can't spiritually bypass the interpersonal situation with the devotee. We can't say, oh, well, the Lord forgives me, so it doesn't matter if I don't approach that devotee and ask for forgiveness. It doesn't matter if I don't rectify this problem. We can't spiritually bypass. We can't say, oh, I'll just pray to the Lord a lot and I'll chant my japa and I'll do this and that. That doesn't acknowledge properly the issue that may be there on a personal level with a devotee who we may have offended. So also, this circumstance encourages us to be more personal in our dealings. And the underlying mercy of all of this really is that we trust that certainly, in the highest sense, in the ideal sense, Vaishnava is full of compassion. A devotee is full of compassion. So by seeking that forgiveness, not only will we strive to obtain that forgiveness, but also we're getting the association of that devotee. And that devotee in that exchange may offer us a great deal of love, may offer us a great deal of mercy, may actually help us on our spiritual journey. So Krishna has placed gifts for us at every turn in this life. And when we are approaching a devotee for forgiveness, that devotee may choose not to forgive us. Let's be honest, right? This is the world and we're all struggling in different ways. That devotee may choose not to forgive us. But in that attempt to seek the forgiveness of the devotee, we're doing something that is very pleasing to the heart of our Lord. And we're doing something that in a perfect world, in an optimistic viewpoint, that may lead to a very meaningful, spiritually beneficial interaction. And may help us on our spiritual path. So we don't say that Krishna is limited in the sense that he will not forgive, if we offend his devotee, but it's rather that the forgiveness lies more strongly with that devotee, and Krishna implores us to approach that devotee, just as he did personally when Durvasa Muni approached him. He said, well, actually, you need to go to Maharaj Ambarish. So we see that this is Krishna's preference, because Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that the devotees are his heart. The devotees reside in his heart. So this is something of a very deep personal significance to the Lord. So he implores us to seek that forgiveness and to take that up with the devotees. So the Lord loves us. The Lord loves us. Krishna is full of mercy and care and love for us. So that's not coming into question here. But it's more that he inspires us to seek forgiveness from the devotee directly. And that emphasizes the importance that the devotees have to him.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was very nice. Thank you for that. And if I may share Tamal Krishna Goswami's instructions on Vaishnav Aparad.
Please, please.
So, in one of the lectures, Goswami Maharaj has mentioned, there's this thing, Vaishnava Aparad it's a very serious offense. And all of us have so many faults and conditionings in us. And, the more you do with sincerity your sadhana, the less these faults will manifest. But all the same, when you're working together, when you're in a sangha, friction does arise. It's human tendency, So whilst we have to think about Vaishnava, that get to a level of parallel. Maharaj said that, if there is no intent in committing the offense, sometimes it just may happen. You may step on somebody's toes, something, whatever be that case. We are all fallible creatures. Nobody is perfect. But if there is no intent, the real serious issue is with intent, either through my words or with thoughts, because thoughts leads to words and actions, and or through our deed, you make an offense, then that is serious. So whilst it is not a license to be casual, that is why each Vaishnav, many a times we are accustomed to familiarity breeds contempt. And then we start taking people for granted. And in such a situation, just because, I don't have the intent, but we have to be extremely careful. And that is why we have this process of Prabhuji, Mataji. It can tend to happen that, I'll call you, hey, Dinabandhu. But, it can happen. We may not add that Prabhuji, but by repeated saying, Prabhu, or whatever, Mataji, then through that, the discipline and training will help us. So I found that very nice, but I really liked your answer. So thanks, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah, always grateful to you, always inspired by you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing such a thoughtful, deep question and bringing our conversation into this space, and for sharing those beautiful instructions from Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Yeah, about intention. Yeah, the intent is such a big factor. Thank you. That's really helpful. And when you mentioned that, it also made me think about something that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about in connection to the 10 offenses. He mentions that every offense has an opposite sort of principle. So to the first offense, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives to spreading the glories of the holy name, right? So what is the opposite of blaspheming? What's the opposite of aparad? So that's to love the devotees, to develop love for the devotees. So it seems that, just as a simple kind of human principle, the more we can find things within the devotees in our Sangha, the more we can find qualities in them that we admire and find lovable and find beautiful. And if we can kind of try to focus on that and remember that and appreciate that, that will also naturally temper our propensity to get overly familiar or to, as you said, like to get into an offensive mentality. So that's another thing that we can consider. And the fortunate thing about that is, there's no shortage of beautiful qualities in the devotees. Anyone else have any thoughts, questions, reflections? I also wanted to say thank you so much to Satyabhama Mataji for chanting the Nishinga Pranam. Very, very beautiful way to start the class.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhuji, I just have a question. I know there's a lot of emphasis given on the attentive chanting, and we should be careful and be very attentive in chanting. When it comes to Shwarnam, like which is like hearing, right? The listening. So many times when we're listening to lectures, we're also on the side doing other things, like maybe driving or maybe some daily home chores. So is that okay? I mean, that's not considered offensive, is it?
No, that's not considered offensive, Prabhu. No, it's, of course, the ideal. So there's the ideal, and then there's, practical, reality. So the ideal would be, yes, that we're fully attentive to hearing, that we're listening and hanging on to every word of the lecture. And Prabhupada, encouraged devotees not only to read his books, for example, but to study them. So I think the ideal situation is we're listening to a lecture with full attention, and we're sitting there maybe with a notepad, taking notes and writing down important realizations that we're getting from the class. That's the highest, way of hearing, I guess you can say. But then, other than that, the important principle also is just that we're developing a regular practice of Shravanam, because Krishna's pastimes, hearing about Krishna and hearing our spiritual knowledge, it's naturally very attractive. So no, there's definitely no offensive. There's no question of being offensive by, while we're driving or while we're doing something in the house, listening to a lecture, listening to a class. It may not be, just being honest, right? It may not be that we're able to dedicate our maximum amount of attention. It may not be the ideal, but it's still demonstrating that positive intention of like, I want to be remembering Krishna. I want to be hearing, from the great devotees. I want to be hearing about Krishna as I go through my day. So we're choosing to engage our hearing, engage our time, engage our energy in that way. So that's a very positive thing that should be encouraged. But at the same time, we recognize there are different levels of attention that we can give.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. And very nice question, Prabhu.
Prabhu, if no one has a question, I can ask something. But if somebody has, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. After a long time, I'm seeing you. Nowadays,
I know. I'm missing you. Missing everybody.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I was just thinking about Nitai Chand. Nitai Chandra, right?
Nitai Chand. Nitai Chand.
Chand. Mm-hmm. How old he is now?
He's just became 2 years old, May 3rd.
Wow. So time flies. Very
time
nice.
Really flying. Thank
And
you, Mataji.
Mataji is also good. Come, Prabhuji, tomorrow for your nursing yagya.
Yeah, we are hoping to join tomorrow. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, see you tomorrow then, Prabhuji. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your care and for inquiring about us, Mataji. Much appreciated. So nice.
Hari.
Okay, Amritananda Prabhu, you said you did have another question?
Yeah, Prabhu, thanks. So, Prabhu, I know your work you do a lot of spiritual care to people who are distressed bodily, mentally. So, this question is, we all are in a, how do I say this, spiritually diseased condition. The very fact we're here is spiritually diseased. Now, the thing is that we do not even realize that we have this disease. And many a times, of course, getting into Sangha, listening at least a little bit here and there, you say, okay, I have this problem. But then habit overtakes us and we get into something like, let's say, the disease of fault finding, ninda, criticisms, all these things which happen. And then maybe in retrospect, we'll, be contrite or, oh, I shouldn't have done it. But that impulse seems, almost so natural, quote unquote, natural to us. So, what is like, just as you provide comfort to people in the physical and mental situation, diseased condition, what would you suggest, Prabhu, some practical way that we be more careful in our behavior, not just with Vaishnavas, but everyone around us, like this, and not be in this fault finding and criticism mode? How can that reflexive action get tampered down?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. So it's such a beautiful question. Really appreciate that. And yes, as you said, fault finding propensity is given as one of our 4 inherent defects. So it's definitely there. It's definitely something very tenacious and very real, and something that's been with us for only Krishna knows how long. So something to be reckoned with. And so how to approach this? So I'm thinking of a few things. I'm thinking of an instruction that my own spiritual master gave to me when I was having some challenges on the spiritual path. Not so much directly relating to fault finding, but just certain outlook and certain behavior and things like that I was struggling with. So he was talking about. Sorry, that's Nita Chand. He's eager to see everybody. But so what he said is to experience an increased dependence upon Krishna and the devotee. So in other words, sometimes we may feel that we're doing fine. We're floating along like that, and things are, they're not great, but they're not terrible, and we're kind of just moving along. But what he was explaining is just to, if we recognize that we have a fault-finding propensity, or if we recognize that we have some area in our spiritual life that really needs some help, we can try to lean more deeply into the gifts that have been given to us. We can try to lean more deeply into the Sangha that we have. We can try to lean more deeply into our service. We can try to lean more deeply into even just having an attitude of gratitude about that which we've been given. And those things can certainly help us. And yeah, to develop this dependence, almost recognizing, wow, maybe I really am still struggling with this more than I thought. And just being honest about that, praying to Krishna for mercy and for help with that. And also, it's a little trick that our ego does sometimes, that we start to feel disqualified. But the thing about causeless mercy is that we're never really qualified per se, right? So our ego can sometimes trick us into feeling that we're disqualified from a particular service. But it's very good to be able to just, with gratitude, get back into that service, get back on the horse, and that helps us a lot. So that's one thing to share. But also just in general, you said generally speaking, not only in the framework of our devotional community, but one way we can avoid that fault-finding propensity is to develop some genuine compassion in our heart, even if it's not like fully taking root in our heart, to at least theoretically adopt this understanding, to adopt an understanding that everyone has their own struggles, everyone's suffering, and sometimes their behavior, even if their behavior seems very off to us or disturbing to us, we recognize that that's coming from somewhere deep down, that they're hurting, that they're seeking love in some way. Srila Bhaktitirtha Swami Maharaj, he talks about this, that every behavior we see in someone is either an act of love or a cry for love. So that can really help us to feel compassionate toward others. And again, not that we try to extend beyond our natural realization, but at least theoretically to remember that we're all parts and parcels of Krishna. Everyone is dear to Krishna. Everyone's part and parcel to Krishna, equally so. So as we go through our life and we may find fault with others, or we may have struggles with others, we try to remember how dear they are to Krishna, and also to remember that they're struggling, they're going through something. And in that way, our compassion can kind of naturally arise, and that helps a lot.
So nice, Prabhu. Thank you for that. Thanks, Prabhu. Haribol.
Haribol, thank you for such great questions, Prabhu. It's really nice to have this dialogue with you. I look forward to more. I really look forward to more on or offline.
Prabhu, I may say something which would embarrass you, but that is something which touched my heart. So, Prabhu has been in Krishna conscious for such a long time when he was a college student. And one day, suddenly out of the blue, just out of the blue, he sends me a handwritten note in the mail. And I haven't received a handwritten note in like decades. It's either emails or, official letters which are all printed. And and I said, who could this be? And then it was Dinabandhu Prabhu. And such kind words which you expressed, Prabhu, that really, really, really touched my heart. And I said that, here's someone who actually took the time. And that's what, I got a lesson that we have to make things more personal in our relationships with people, then we won't take them for granted. Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Amritananda Prabhu. No, I really have so much gratitude to you, so much appreciation, and thank you. Yeah. Well, just like you shared something, I can just briefly share that, Amritananda Prabhu has really been a great encouragement to me in my Krishna conscious journey from the very beginning.
Oh man. Prabhu.
No, okay, I'll stop. I'll leave it there. But there's a lot that can be said.
For everyone, Prabhuji, not for you only, for everyone.
Yeah, for
Okay.
everyone, exactly.
He is.
I think
He
it's
is
8 o'clock.
Inspiration for like motivating
But-
everyone.
It's past,
But I
it's
really
past 8
appreciate
o'clock.
it, Prabhu. I really take your encouragement to heart. So thank you for your blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your association, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you
Hare
all. Thank you.
Krishna.
Anyone
We
else
all
would
are
like to?
fortunate. We all are fortunate having such a wonderful association. Very nice congregation we have.
Yeah, a beautiful community.
Yeah, all
Really
glory
so
to
grateful.
Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So thank you all so much. Thank you for your wonderful presence, for your wonderful comments, and for your association. And thank you so much, Simheshwar Prabhu, for organizing and for this great opportunity to share with the devotees and to spend this time with everyone. So thank you so much, everyone. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We'll offer obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thank you so
Hare
much,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.